a salt lamp. It's gotta look nice, kinda.
Yeah.
Alright, cool.
Okay.
Alright. Okay. Let me see. Let me post on the socials really fast. It should be live on Facebook.
Yeah, I see it.
Cool.
Oh, there's us.
Oh, I can hear us.
That's
I could do this.
okay. I'm gonna turn it off.
No, I can do this.
Yeah.
Hello, testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Let me start the audio recording here. Boop. Hello, testing. Can you say something, Ali?
Testing.
Okay, should be okay.
Let me get closer.
Nah,
Okay.
it sounds okay.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, starting podcasts now.
Catholic dads, Catholic dads.
Am I doing the wrong? Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Bad Catholic Dads. I'm one of your hosts, John Perez, and I should probably put the camera on. There you go. I'm one of your hosts, John Perez. Josh Namus is not here this week. Unfortunately, we are going to roast him
Yeah.
because he did not pack enough in time for his trip this weekend. So it's just me. But we do have a historic moment. I don't know if you know this, but this is a Catholic Dads podcast for Catholic dads by Catholic dads. We only and mostly interview men. But for the first time ever, we're very
There's a lady
excited
in
to
the
have
studio.
a woman on the show.
Nice.
First woman
Nice.
ever. So
I'm very honored.
Ali Rak is on the show. Welcome. And if you recognize that last name, that's because we had her husband on last week, so we get the 1 for 2
Yeah.
with both of you. But yeah, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Well, I guess I don't know where to start. I think we start with, what do you think of your husband's episode last week? I thought the best part was you texting him during the episode.
Yeah, I wanted everyone to know that we had dispensation to be married outside the Catholic Church. I didn't want any doubt in the validity of our marriage. So he was like, "Oh yeah, it was co-officiated." I'm like, "Nope,
Very
it's
nice.
not." Because I grew up, my dad was Catholic, and my mom was Episcopalian, and their whole lives said it was co-officiated. And so when we went to the priest, it was time to get ready for marriage. We said, we'd like to have it co-officiated. And he's like, we don't really do that. We're like, what? Like, but we can, we give you permission to have a Catholic presence there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what it was. So it was really funny. I was like, I just wanted him to get that, but he got all the details of everything else pretty well down. So
Nice.
I was impressed.
Were you surprised that he got it all down?
No.
Seth, if you're watching. Hi, Seth. Is he watching today?
He's probably praying the rosary with the kids right now.
Oh, good.
So
good
he
job,
might,
Dad. Good job.
Yes. We're actually in the middle of a 54-day rosary novena.
Cool.
And I'll either pray it on the way home, or honestly, like, we're kind of making it like it's a family endeavor. So as long as one of us says the rosary,
Nice,
with the miraculous novena prayers.
I just realized there's a drill on my table.
Yeah.
I was just mentioning that I was fixing up the studio. I was like trying to get it ready because I just had computer parts everywhere.
Yeah.
Being someone in IT, but
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome that you guys are praying.
So I thought he did a good job. I think he was pretty tickled that you asked him, and he likes you guys. So
yeah, so I don't know if you know a lot about this podcast previously. I was doing it for like 2 years, a couple years ago.
Oh, cool.
We had some pretty awesome guests. We've had people from Ascension Press. Like,
cool.
Do you know Bobby Angel? Have you seen them?
No. But I
Jackie
am a fan
Francois,
of Ascension Press.
His wife.
Oh, cool.
We had him on. We had the Bishop of Arlington.
Oh, cool.
On, which was really cool.
Yeah.
And then my former co-host Derek, he's getting his master's from Franciscan in some sort of ministry thing. Because he's a full-time youth minister.
Cool.
And we had to take a break because he was in his master's program or something.
It's brutal.
And I've been for some reason it's always been tugging on my heart from God, and I really didn't want to do it alone.
Yeah.
I could have done it alone.
Right,
I feel
right,
like
right.
I'm a good enough host to just get a guest and interview people, but I think once we all met, and obviously I met Josh and seeing his witness. And you know what's funny? I
brought him into the church.
Yeah. You know what's really funny that it was the seed that got planted to have Josh as a co-host was
Go Ask Your Father.
Go Ask Your Father. And I think you weren't there. You were there.
Yeah, I was there.
Anyway, you asked him to be the host for it.
Yeah.
But you didn't know me that well, obviously.
Right,
you didn't know, like, I've had public speaking experience or podcasting experience.
No.
And
I
so
just knew you were techie.
Yeah, and so I was just like, let's see how this guy does. I was kind of judging him a little bit. Let's see how his hosting was. And I was like, yeah, this guy's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
And I thought that was, and then
I told him I wanted William F. Buckley.
Okay.
From what is it, Firing Line?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was funny. With that, he got that reference. Was like, I was like, we're friends.
Yeah.
You know?
And so we're doing seasons.
Cool.
This time around, just because it allows us to have space for life.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the biggest thing. But when we were looking before the season, we were talking about, okay, what are the things we want to hit?
Yeah.
Obviously, we're in the middle of an election.
Yeah.
Or an election that's coming up. And so we definitely wanted to hit on some of the big topics of the election.
Yeah.
And so we brought on Seth to kind of talk about the education side
school
little
choice,
bit.
which he would totally come back and talk. He was like, we didn't even we talked so much about me.
Yeah.
But oh my gosh.
But I think it's important to understand where someone comes from.
Oh, for sure.
In order to kind of see, where to go yourself, And so
but he could totally come on and talk about special
education
and school choice and all that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and so we had Noel on from California. He lives in California. God bless him, living in California.
Right now
in San Francisco.
Whew. In San Francisco?
Yeah.
He should think about moving.
He is thinking about it, actually.
Okay,
but we had him to talk a little bit about kind of the lockdowns, because they're still in severe lockdown over there. And then, of course, we have you on.
Cool.
To talk about pro-life issues. And
nice.
I think it was really important to us, especially to Josh. I think Josh is really the one who spearheaded this thing, because he was just like, I think it would be great to have a woman's voice for that. And there's nothing wrong with having, obviously, men's voice for that. But I think there's something more powerful. I don't know how to say it, more powerful. So, I was joking with him, with you, because we think you're so knowledgeable on the topic. Obviously,
I hope.
You are. Obviously, the viewers will find out in a second.
Yeah.
But I was joking with him that I think this episode, you're going to mansplain to us more than we're going to mansplain to you.
Yeah.
So let's talk about. Let's just get right into it and talk a little bit before we get to. I think the episode, the idea that we had was to kind of debunk a lot of Catholics, because we come from with a Catholic view, right? And so
Right.
a lot of Catholics are justifying voting for a pro-choice candidate.
Yeah.
And a lot of them use kind of this muddy water
Yeah.
tactics to kind of justify those things.
Yeah.
And we'll get to that. But before we get to that, I do want to talk to you about a little bit about your life story.
Sure.
Can you talk about your life story? But specifically, talk about obviously where you're from, your faith growing up.
Yep.
But also, and obviously how, because you're a convert, how did you eventually come to the one true church?
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
So I would think, pretty ideal life growing up, intact family. I'm one of 5. My dad, like I said, was brought up Catholic in a very Catholic area. I'm from the Buffalo area. But my mom's Episcopalian. She's from the Philly area, and they just agreed that they would raise us Episcopalian. So I was baptized in a Trinitarian formula, an acceptable baptism.
Nice.
As a baby, all my siblings were, and I have vivid memories of going to church regularly. I think from around age 7 or 8 until 11. So during those years we were solidly Episcopalian, church every Sunday. All the kids were in the children's choir. We had this phenomenal organist, choir teacher, choir director who had, so it was a 40-person 4-part choir and a 20-person children's choir. It was the 4th Sunday of the month or something, Thursday night choir rehearsals. So huge floor to ceiling organ, cathedral ceilings. All the vestments and the incense and all the greatness, So,
That's cool.
So we were very involved in the church. And, my dad had, a really bad work accident. He threw out his back really severely, became, medically disabled when I was in middle school. So he just sort of fell out of practice because there was a lot of, he needed surgery and there was, he was down a lot. And we just sort of fell out of the practice.
Sure.
So, all my siblings are super smart. All of us top of our class, my brother Derek is in New York. He's he was 3rd in his high school class, but he's valedictorian in his college class. He's got a doctorate in audiology. My other brother Brian is a medical doctor. He's a DO. He was in the Army. Now he's out in Colorado. My sister is really super smart. She was a D1 athlete. My brother Kale is he was what was he? 10th in his class, I think, 1,400 on the SATs. Everybody's so really, really, smart. So, high school wasn't about, a search for faith, but it was definitely about achievement,
Right.
So when I got to college, I definitely had, I have to say that in high school, I had a few evangelical friends who I always had this feeling whenever they would talk, I'd be like, man, do I want that? I just didn't have belief, you know what I mean? So it was man, I want to, how do I get there,
Right.
So I had evangelical friends through college, but no church going whatsoever. So then Seth and I started dating in my senior year, and he told you about our story. I was really in high school when we met, but
Right.
we weren't. He hung out with my brother for years,
Right.
and he was just the guy that slept on our couch sometimes, because they stayed out at the bar too late.
Yeah.
He does love telling people that I drove the drunk bus.
That's awesome.
I think the latest I ever picked them up was 3:30 in the morning. And I was
Nice.
you're taking me to Denny's if I'm picking you guys up that late
Nice.
in winter in Buffalo.
Yeah.
So, so I finished college. So we started dating in my senior year. I went abroad. And he did kind of gloss over this, but we did have this kind of old school letter writing thing that we did. I mean, it was via email, but it was but it was still, and actually on our first anniversary, I printed all those off for him.
awesome.
I don't even know if I still have them, but he would say stuff like, well, I lived, 27 years without you, 28 years without you. I think I'll be okay when you're in Greece. But what he didn't tell, this is the funny part of the story I was telling your wife when we watched it, was the day that he was at the bar with friends who had brought girls to meet him.
Right. He did mention that.
And also I used to text him via AOL Instant Messenger. Because you could text phones if you did a plus,
That was the iMessage before iMessage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he had, a flip phone, and I would, message because I could get a sliver of internet in my apartment in Greece. But really what happened was like we had started dating kind of before I left, but we sort of left it like, well, we're going to keep things like loose.
Right.
Because I always imagined going abroad and like just having the time of my life.
Right,
and, like,
right.
hooking up with like beautiful Greek men or something.
Right,
Do you know what I mean?
right.
Just like
The
whatever
dream.
I want.
Yeah.
And so I get there. He gave me this like little dog to take on the plane. And I, you know, I had this, like, I only took like this dog and like these blankets that I always sleep with at night, you know, like those are the only two like keepsakes I took with me like on the plane, you know. So it was like people are like, where'd you get that dog? I'm like, well, my guy. I would call him my guy at home, Seth.
Nice.
But anyway, after about 2 weeks and we're talking, you know what I mean, we're messaging back and forth, we're texting, we're sending emails. Well, I went to karaoke with friends and this British guy like started talking to me, and he, you know, we exchanged cell phone numbers, and he was staying at the Hilton in Athens, so he had money, and he was not attractive, but it was like he's got a British accent.
Yeah.
Well, he asked me out for drinks, and I was in a crisis. I was like, oh my gosh, like, and it was crazy, but I would ask people for advice. I'd be like, do you think, like, if I've got this guy at home, like we're pretty much dating, but like, you know, it's not official. Do you think like it's okay if I go have drinks with this guy? I can't tell you how many friends were like, yeah, go have drinks with the guy.
Yeah.
And I was like, just this nagging that I couldn't, you know, so I message him. I'm like, what do you, well, this actually, when I decided, I was like, I'm not going to go have drinks with that guy. Blew him off, told him I wasn't feeling well. I went out with ice to have like pan-Asian food and ice cream with my friends.
Cool.
After a class. And I felt a lot better. So when I got home, I messaged him and I was like, what do you call me when like you're telling other people about me? And he's like, well, it depends on who it is, but it's usually my girlfriend.
Nice.
And then he was like, why? And I'm like, well, because I think you're my boyfriend. And that was like, okay.
Cool.
So we retroactively like say we start a relationship like our first date, but really it's like that moment.
Okay.
You know, that I was
Very
like,
cool.
okay, I'm not going to go out with this ugly British guy. So
there you go.
So anyway, I come back from Greece, you know, after the fall, and so it was my last semester at Gettysburg, and it was funny. He had come to like visit for his spring break.
Right.
He had like 2 weeks off, and I think he stayed a whole week with me. I was like doing my work, and it was funny. My roommate grew up Catholic, so she might be watching because I shared it to my Facebook page.
Nice.
And my roommate was like, we're going to go to Palm Sunday Mass. She grew up Catholic too. She never went to Mass at Gettysburg, like, you know. And so I just didn't know there was a Sunday obligation or anything like that. So I said to Seth, you don't want to go to church with them, do you? And he's like, actually, yes. I'm like, and I was shocked. And he got dressed up, and like he and my best friend Christy and my roommate Liz like went off to Palm Sunday Mass at Gettysburg College. So you know, that was kind of like the first witness. And then yes, we got, you know, so we dated another that was only like 6 months into our relationship. And so we dated another year and a half before we got engaged. What were we? Yeah. And so when we got engaged, and he told you like from there that we got, you know, we got married with dispensation in the church.
Cool.
And I wanted communion after about 3 years. That was because the liturgy, the Catholic liturgy is the Novus Ordo is exactly the same as the Episcopal Mass, you know, which they don't call it a Mass.
Right.
You know, it's the Eucharist or whatever. But it's like almost identical,
right,
in the structure and everything. And so I was like, I didn't see a point in converting when we first got together, because I was like, this is the same as my religion.
Yeah.
And also, I didn't believe in like the one true church. I was like, okay, but I was like, this stinks. Every week, I'm in the choir, I'm cantering, and I am like, you know, the extraordinary minister comes up, and I'm like, oh, I'm not Catholic, and I just was like, this stinks. So I entered our CIA. I entered inquiry just because I was like, all right, well, I'll just go through the motions.
Right.
So that's how it started.
What I guess my question is, was it purely just wanting to be a part of something, or do you think there was something more like a pull towards the Eucharist in something, you know what I mean, like something different?
I wouldn't say that I had like any sort of longing for the Eucharist, but I definitely, and he talked about this last week, like my conversion started at pre-Cana.
What?
I could tell you, like, I felt the Holy Spirit pricking at my conscience.
Right.
Because, and I remember like being in tears, like, I want to give my life to Jesus. I want this, but this means I have to stop doing, you know, so like we weren't married yet.
Right.
And it was like, I'm going to have to give up some of these sinful things.
Right.
And so ultimately at that time I pushed the Holy Spirit off, but I can tell you, like, it was pre-Cana was a very life-changing experience because I went in very bitter, like, I had to do this, you know. And so I do think we decided pre-Cana was so great. I totally recommend the 3 to get married at the Bethesda Family Development Center. It's not the same priest anymore, but it was a quality program then.
Cool.
And we, you know, they made you sit down and like plan your family. You know what I mean? Like how do you want to raise your kids?
Yeah.
In the church, going Sunday. What kinds of things from your family of origin do you want in? What don't you? And you know, it was like, I remember we went to Mass. The priest that was preparing us was like, you have to go to Mass. And I was like, okay, we got to go to Mass. So we did. We went from January 2010 until we got married. We did not miss Sunday Mass. We went, whether he was in Philly or I was down here. And so we would go out, you know, to breakfast afterward. And I was like, I know I want this. Like, I want go to church on Sunday and we go out to eat, or, you know, like something like that.
Cool.
So you'll notice, like, no matter how long we stay, like, hanging out at Mass, we're always Wawa for donuts, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Occasionally,
it's just always been part of the tradition.
Yeah, that's what we do.
Right.
So it's Sundays are set aside for that. So that was actually that was a nice way to start our marriage. So we went to Sunday Mass. I would say we only missed a few times. Before I entered RCIA.
Sure.
Now we don't miss anymore.
So you go through RCIA. How was that experience for you?
So that was like the first few classes. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to make it through this. I was really kind of caught up in like the home-based business world at the time. I'd just become a stay-at-home mom, and I know I needed to make income. So like that's very evangelical. Like home-based businesses, network marketing is like really prosperity gospel. So I was like, I don't think these Catholics really like believe the same thing. Do you know what I mean? Because I didn't know anything about church history or that. But it was about November of that year that we had gone to Mass. We came home. I think Matthew was napping. Excuse me. And I was watching Joel Osteen. And,
nice.
you know, it's always a good, nice message. But at the end, he, like, held up his Bible and he was like, get yourself into a good Bible-believing church. And I looked at Seth and I'm like, what does that mean? Because I'd never heard of a church that didn't believe in the Bible. Right? I mean, like, isn't that the mark of a Christian church? So Christian was a newborn at the time, or like an infant. So I had a lot of time when I was nursing him to, like, you know, research on my phone. So I Googled, like, what does Bible believing mean? And it means not Catholics. Catholics are not Bible believing. And I was offended. Because I'm like, I sit in Mass every Sunday. What are you talking about? They don't believe in the Bible. They read from the Bible. So I went down this rabbit hole. I found this website that was like Angel Fire, like, you know what I mean? Like really old. Just somebody made that website probably in 1996 and it just was there. You know what I mean? But it was like 50 unbiblical practices of Bible believing churches. And just to show that, like, they don't believe, you know what I mean? Like, they have tradition, too. And that just went, I was really offended for Catholics. And then I went down this rabbit hole and I was like, oh, my gosh, there's so much truth here. Boop. So then I was just like, that was it. I was, like, researching my way into the church.
Very cool.
After that,
So you get through RCIA, and I guess we fast forward a little bit. You know, I don't think we mentioned, but you are... What is your title at St. Joseph's?
I am the Director of Religious Education and Youth Ministry.
How did you get into getting into, like, what's your story from, because it's hard to segue from, because I know you personally. And like our group knows you personally. You go from, you know, not working for the church to working for the church. But at a certain point, were you ever, I guess, against the church in the teachings, or because I guess when you get married and you get into the church, I guess that way, right? Technically, what made you want to work for the church?
So I actually started working for the church towards the end of RCIA. So, no, I was a little hostile to some of the beliefs, but I would not have become Catholic if I didn't feel confident. If I would not have been Catholic if there was anything standing in the way. So anything that was, I sincerely prayed about. And I was like, I would pray for understanding. I would pray for God to reveal like truths. and it would come to me. I would listen to a ton of Catholic radio.
Yeah.
I always tell my inquirers, like, just listen to relevant radio, listen to EWTN.
Yeah.
Now, of course, like, I don't listen to radio as much. I listen to a lot of podcasts.
Yeah.
But
Well, that's the new radio now.
Yeah, or Formed.org is so good.
Yeah, Formed worked really good.
So my RCIA people are always like, what should we watch next on Formed? I'm like, oh my gosh.
That's cool.
So those are great. Yeah.
Very cool.
But I would find the answer to prayers come through radio, like a little at a time. Some of the hardest things for me to understand would come through like the radio in like little bits.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so a lot of people will be like, well, you used to believe this. What made you change your mind? And I try to explain to people it's like not ever just one thing.
Right.
It's like understanding like how layers of Catholic teaching work together.
Yeah.
And I think it's a Fulton Sheen quote that like there's only probably 100 people who actually oppose what the church believes, but there's millions who oppose what they think the church believes.
Mm-hmm.
So that was me. There's a lot, but like once I learned, I found myself Googling all the time Catholic view on this movie, this book, this practice. You know what I mean?
I actually do that too. When we watch movies, I'll be like, "What's the Catholic review on this movie?"
Yeah,
like I still do that all the time.
Yeah. No, that's good.
Yeah, it's just it's really funny that you mentioned.
Like I was really into Yellowstone last year, and my sister was like, when I was like, "You guys have to watch this show." Like my sister and my mom, and my sister looked at me. She was like, "You watch this?" Like,
yeah.
I was really into it, but I have to say, my conscience pricked me, and I did not watch season 3 at all, not one episode. And I was so into it last year.
What show is this?
Yellowstone with my gosh, it's on the Paramount Network. It is really good.
Okay.
Kevin Costner. I mean, you can't go wrong with Kevin Costner.
Okay, sure, yeah.
But it's like the mafia, like in Montana.
Okay. Wow.
So good, but it's raunchy and it's violent. Is all get
There's
out.
There's a couple shows like that where there's a certain point where it's just too dark to watch.
Yes.
It's not good for your soul.
Oh,
it's not
exactly.
good. That's the way I feel about horror movies too.
Yeah.
Like I love horror. I'm a big horror movie buff.
Yeah.
But more so I love spiritual warfare movies.
Yeah.
Like Love the Right.
Mm-hmm.
Loved a bunch of other ones.
Mm-hmm.
Like but at the same time the ones that don't have like a quote unquote happy ending or even just like a light at the end of the tunnel.
Right.
I don't like.
Yeah.
Because there's no point to it.
Yeah.
Because we know the truth.
Yeah.
That there always is a light at the end of the tunnel.
Right.
And that's kind of how I feel about movies too. Is like when I go research or when I type in Catholic review of this, I think the biggest thing is that as Catholics we should always have like of course entertainment and it's there for us to enjoy, there for us to be entertained. But I think there's something to be being Catholic in saying there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There is quote unquote theology.
Yep.
We should be seeing theology, or we should be seeing Christ, or we should be seeing the Holy Spirit in every moment.
Yeah. And this is something I really want to get
Yeah.
I want to get deep more into, but the social kingship of Christ.
Right.
And that we aren't and this is very relevant to the pro-life conversation.
Right.
That Christ is supposed to reign everywhere.
Right.
And so yes, he should be in every facet of our life.
100%.
Like that is what we should that's that's evangelization.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I love living on the internet, because I think like Christ should be on the internet.
Yeah,
Christ should be in podcasts. Christ should be on whatever entertainment, whatever form of entertainment. But let's move on to our pro-life conversation. You weren't always pro-life.
No.
Explain.
I was not always pro-life.
Wait, first of all, number one, you're the director of religious education at St. Joseph's.
Yep.
But if you don't know Ali, she's a big-time activist for many different movements, especially the pro-life movement.
Yep.
Are you the director or president for Charles County Right to Life? What else are you active for?
So I also sit on the steering committee for the Maryland March for Life.
Cool.
And I do archdiocesan pro-life work.
Cool.
So that's actually how I was the music director at St. Joe's part-time before I moved into the DRE position. So that's how I came into the church, like through the music ministry, but it was part-time. And so I was also a Respect Life coordinator, and we started a conference in 2016. We actually, and it was actually supposed to be timed for the election of Donald Trump.
Nice.
And So we started an apologetics conference. So so I do archdiocesan pro-life, stuff. Local Charles County. Yep. And I was just on, I should be on the Equal Rights Institute podcast pretty soon. I'm friends with Josh Braun.
Very cool.
He has a podcast. So I don't know when I'm like lined up to like go live, but we recorded it in September.
Look at you.
Yeah.
I just bring this up because I want all the people who are listening to understand the credentials of Miss Ali Rak.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So obviously
laying it down before the heat comes.
Right. Very pro-life, very and you just did awesome rally to open schools up.
Yes,
for the county.
I also lead the reopen movement in Charles County.
Yeah.
Yes, I had done a
cool.
rally to reopen schools on Tuesday, but we also like really pushed for business reopenings back in May and June.
The biggest thing was if you see a rally in Charles County,
you're probably
there. You're probably heading it up. Okay, so let's talk about kind of your pro-life journey.
Yeah.
You weren't pro-life before.
No, I wasn't. I was very pro-choice during high school and college. In fact, I was the co-director of my women's center my sophomore year at college. No, junior year.
Yeah.
Junior year in college. I was allowed to hold whatever political beliefs that I wanted, but I had to be pro-choice. That was a rule of the of my dean, the advisor. So we were it was a very feminist organization.
Local feminist, right?
Yeah. And so I was at actually a more conservative college. I was a little bit more in the minority, being a very liberal person. So I was constantly challenged on my beliefs, but nobody ever threw a good pro-life argument at me. So it would be like, I just remember vividly, like a freshman class, somebody saying, like, it's a baby, and I'm like, no, it's not. You know what I mean? So it's like just yelling like the word baby at someone. It's like, oh my gosh. You know what I mean? Because baby connotates like this thing I can hold in my arms.
Right.
And so nobody ever used good arguments against me. So I go into my relationship with Seth, my marriage, pro-choice.
Right.
And it was when Matthew, my oldest, is a honeymoon baby. So imagine my surprise. I'm thinking I'm going to, wait a year or two, whoop, here we go. So like new job, new apartment, new marriage, pregnant.
Right.
And I actually had to, my first OB appointment got pushed off so late because I like waited to call because it was like, getting over this shock. And I had didn't have insurance. I called a really busy office. So it was like, I went in at 11 weeks for like my OB intake.
Right.
They actually confirmed the pregnancy on a Doppler, with his heartbeat. They were like, no blood test needed. But I had no idea like when I conceived. So they had to send me for an early ultrasound. And Matthew came back on his 13-week scan or whatever with like a increased nuchal fold on the back of his neck, which can be indicative of like a disability or, in worst case scenarios, fetal demise.
Right.
So that was a really shocking situation. We had to go to a high risk doctor, and they did like a high level ultrasound and like talk to a genetic counselor. And Matthew's fluid level was like 50-50, like 50% chance he's fine. 50% chance there's something wrong.
Sure.
And it was like in that 50 that something was wrong. Like the biggest chunk was that he had like a chromosome abnormality. The next was like heart defect, and like the other stuff was like skeletal or something else.
Right.
So it's like, all right, let's do some genetic testing, which nowadays they can just do like the non-invasive, test,
Sure.
but that wasn't available to me. So I did a chorionic villus sampling, like an amniocentesis. And, I watched this on the ultrasound, and I watched my little 13-week baby, like when his space was invaded, and he was on the other side. Like they made sure they went in on a side where he wasn't. Like he's over here and they're pricking over here. He went crazy.
Wow.
Just that tiny little prick. I remember eating lunch with Seth after that appointment because he was very anxious. Like we thought he was going to die. Like why would they send us to this high risk doctor? And I was like, I think he's going to be okay. I think. Well, we didn't know it was a he.
Right.
I think the baby's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And I just saw this life moving around. So that was like the first kind of like I do think that God had us go through this so that I could go through this experience. So we had a lot of high level ultrasounds, and then by 18 weeks I could feel him move, like kick me.
Wow.
And now I've already seen him in high definition, a 3D ultrasound
Yeah.
twice.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, I didn't know that abortion was legal through all 9 months in Maryland at the time. But my experience was in Pennsylvania, where I went to college, where the cutoff was 24 weeks. So he's only 18 weeks. I've seen how big he is. I've seen how lively he is. And now I can feel him moving. And 24 weeks is the cutoff for abortion. I was like, what kind of, like, I felt lied to. You know what I mean? I was like, what kind of procedure would be necessary to take this child out of my womb?
It was almost like the curtain was just
oh my gosh
dropped.
I mean, I can tell you where I was standing in my living room. I was just like, whoa. So that was like the beginning, but it was like other thresholds along the way that I had to, but I did eventually become like no exceptions pro-lifer. But for a while it was definitely like, well, I think it's wrong. But I'm a mother, like I felt life in my womb. Like I think that this is, this is wrong, but I didn't know how to express it to other people other than just my feelings. So it was when I discovered pro-life apologetics through Trent Horn and his Persuasive Pro-Life. I got the book for free.
Yep.
I was listening to Catholic Answers one night because I was in RCIA and I was obsessed, and I was like, vacuuming the room and stuff, and I hear him. We're just taking calls from pro-choicers, and I got anxious because I've only ever heard those conversations go poorly.
Yeah.
And Trent was like, like his demeanor.
Right.
And I was like, holy cow, he's like conquering these people. And then it was like, today, it's a March for Life special. Like, we're making Persuasive Pro-Life Kindle version available for free. So I got it for free, and I watched. I read a little bit of it. At first I'm like, oh, okay, this is pretty good, but I like kind of set it aside, like I do with a lot of books. And it was that summer, the Planned Parenthood expose through Center for Medical Progress came out, and it was like, oh my gosh, they got him. You know what I mean? They got all the corruption from Planned Parenthood and the horrors of abortion, and I was really activated. So I finished the rest of Persuasive Pro-Life while I was on vacation, and at that time I had Margaret. I was nursing a baby again. And I went to a Charles County Right to Life meeting, and it was like, no offense if Sid Marcus is watching. Sid was the long time president. But Sid, it's just like, where are we going to put the cemetery crosses, and what should the sign say? And, just kind of like, and I wanted to get active, I was like, we got to do something. Yeah. So I like emailed Trent Horn, through his website. I'm like, would you come and do like a seminar? Because to me, I thought, pro-lifers must not know this stuff. They must not know these arguments, because more people would be pro-life, Sure. So that's how we got started. That's how I got active. I started a conference. We started book studies with Persuasive Pro-Life. I sold like 200 copies of that book through my book studies, through the conference. We had Trent come down in September 2016.
Nice.
And we had like 200 people at St. Joseph.
Oh, man.
It was really cool.
Living in Southern. What were we doing? Yeah. We just got married. We had James.
We worked 9 months on that conference, and and here's the thing, this is like a little glimpse into me and my motivations. Yeah. But I had been at a Queenship of Mary, like, retreat, like 1-day retreat thing the year before. Like, my friend Chris and her friends had thrown this thing together, this gigantic feast for, the Queenship of Mary in like 6 weeks. And 450 women, a lot of them Filipinos, were there. Cool. And I was like, oh my gosh, if I build it, they'll come, right? You know what I mean? I just thought, people are going to want pro-life apologetics. They're going to want a big name. I'm going to fill this room with 450 people. Yeah. And people were like, Father Swank down in Sacred Heart, he was like, maybe you should think about like 100, and I was like, no, nobody could tell me anything different. They were like, this is a pro-life event, like, you should really. I was like, no. So it was like the week before the conference, and I'm talking to Seth, I'm like, we only have 185 registered. Like, what are we gonna do? How am I gonna get it to 450? I'm like depressed. He's like, you're the only one who thinks that 200 people at a pro-life conference is a failure. You're the only one. You know what I mean? Everybody else was like, oh my gosh, look at all these people. Trent Horn, like when he came up, my friend Kitty was driving him. He goes, oh my gosh, look at all these cars. Oh, they must be here for daily mass. And she's like, we don't have daily mass. These people are here for you. He's like, what? And he came in, and he was like, his eyes were
So
big.
How many people showed up to the event?
Like, it was like 190.
Okay.
By the time like all was said and done. Right. But he got up on stage.
He was surprised though.
He said, this is the biggest, most enthusiastic crowd I've ever spoken to.
That's awesome. Let's bring him back.
For pro-life.
Let's bring him back.
We would love to bring him back.
Real quick, before, in case anyone's wondering, can you just explain really quickly what Persuasive Pro-Life is?
Yeah, Persuasive Pro-Life is a book by
Yeah.
Trent Horn, and it is like I like to call it a field manual. So it
Nice.
it's pro-life apologetics, which if you don't know the term apologetics, doesn't mean we're apologizing for anything. It means we're building a defense. It comes from the Greek word apologia. And that's a defense. So it's a defense of the pro-life position. Trent worked for Justice for All, which we've also had the executive director of Justice for All at our conference, Steve
Nice.
Wagner. He's also great. Justice for All is great. So it's really a synthesis of all the best pro-life arguments that Trent has, engaged with throughout his career. So he really kind of put them all together.
Yeah.
And he organized the chapters by the type of argument. So it's like you really focus on like one type of argument at a time, how to defeat it, and then each chapter ends with like a sample dialogue.
Cool.
So we actually had a book study where we would study a chapter at a time, and then we'd practice. We'd practice the
very
dialogues
cool.
and stuff. Yeah, they felt so secure speaking out after we did those. Like, it was really good.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah, go check it out. Persuasive Pro-Life. You
Yeah.
can probably find it on Catholic Answers or just type in down on Google.
Yeah,
Trent
you know,
Horn.
if you want, I'll give you a
If
copy.
you're here, if you're close,
you can do a,
if
you
you're
can do
in
a
the Charles
giveaway
County,
for Bad Catholic Dads.
Oh, there we go. Let's do it. All right. So that leads us to really, I think, the biggest topic on your episode. I mean, I would love to chat with you for forever, but
right.
I think when we wanted you to be on the show, well, I think the biggest thing was talking about pro-life issues.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Yeah.
you're somewhat of an expert on pro-life issues, I would say.
Yeah, I am.
And the biggest thing that we've seen is a lot of Catholics, and I would say a lot of Catholics
Mhm.
are, how do I put this nicely, right? Confused
Yeah.
about, or even just flat out, and I will say this, justifying
Mhm.
voting for pro-choice candidates out there.
Yeah.
Of course, we are in the midst. I hate when politicians say this, but we're in the midst of an election.
Yeah.
Voting's happening right now.
Yeah.
Voting will happen November 3rd.
Yeah.
Hopefully more in person.
Yeah.
Right. And so what we wanted to throw out to you was kind of arguments for voting for a pro-choice candidate. Right.
There are none.
We're
Done. Next
done.
question.
Over. Later. See you guys next week. But I thought it'd be just fun to kind of like.
Let's talk.
I'm sure you've seen it on Twitter.
Yep.
You've seen it on Facebook. Fellow friends who are quote unquote Catholics.
Well, okay. I think a lot of people have ousted themselves from my Facebook feed. They don't even try.
How fun is it to just hit the mute button, or do you ever hit the unfriend button? Like what makes it? What makes
it's very okay. The only time I unfriend someone is if I think they're a danger to me. There have been people who have thrown some shade and kind of low key suggested that they would go after me. Do you know what I mean? Or I always find it really uncomfortable if someone I've friended in college and really haven't spoken to, and I didn't even really know them well back then.
Right.
That they can see my stuff because my children are on there. So I actually do keep my Facebook pretty if I interact with you, I keep you around, even if I don't agree with you. But yeah, if I view your posts and I like to watch your children grow up and that sort of thing, but I will regularly go through my Facebook friends and unfriend people I literally don't ever talk to anymore.
Yeah.
Because
I do on their birthdays.
I did have a Facebook friend who I was at Gettysburg College with in choir, and people do they'll do this, and you should really be on guard with this. But they will keep you around as the token conservative if they're super liberal, and liberals do this too.
Right.
Liberal or conservatives do it too.
Yeah.
They like to have their token liberal friend to be like, look, I have good dialogue. You know what I mean? Which I have pro-life Democrats on my that I've Teresa Bukovac from San Francisco, pro-life San Francisco. She's a principled person. She falls on the left of everything except for abortion, and she's not nasty, and she's not fake. She's not okay, I pretend to like you because you help my pro-life work. No, she's I really do love all pro-life people. You know what I mean? We're not going to agree on politics. But this person, kept me around to, I think she, liked to fancy that she was, a tolerant person. But during the lockdowns, and I expressed, some really, forceful opinions on, maybe the governor of Maryland's kind of tyrannical, you know? And she sent me a message saying that, she felt I'd been radicalized over the years and she feared for me and my children. that is going to get you a ban from my page. Like, you are not going to view my children or anything about my life if you are going to look at me expressing mainstream conservative views and you think that I'm a danger to my children. Like, whoop, that's, it's a danger.
That's great.
But generally people do not, if I post something pro-life, no, because I am really good. I don't post anything that I don't think I can back up.
Right.
I try not to post conspiracy. So people don't really try it anymore.
Yeah.
But I do view it on other people's pages.
Cool. All right. So let's talk about some arguments for voting for the pro-choice candidate. Obviously, I think the devil, Satan, loves to muddy the water. Yeah. I think that's the number one thing he loves to do, which is just confuse us.
Yeah.
By, giving arguments for justifying, having our souls in danger, really.
Yeah.
And so I think the one thing that I was listening to Matt Fradd, who I really like, and my boy Michael Knowles from Daily Wire, they were talking about this, and I wanted to bring it on our show. And they mention a certain Cardinal Tobin.
99 Baby.
That
one.
You did say you were going to mention that. A Catholic in good conscience can vote for.
Yeah, this
Joe
is
Biden.
like
What do
a
you think?
total obscuring of Catholic teaching.
Right.
So the 5 Catholic non-negotiables. Right. And like 4 out of 5 of those are life issues. Like abortion, euthanasia, stem cell research, cloning. And those are non-negotiables, meaning you don't negotiate on them.
Yeah.
If your candidate supports one of those things, you are not supposed to. Like, plainly, it used to be understood pretty clearly, you don't vote for someone who supports those things.
Right.
In the last few years, and it's like at a breakneck speed now, I feel like this year, I feel like the liberal bishops have like totally like dropped the facade. And it's like, well, and they'll take the faithful citizen document by the USCCB. Yeah. And
that just came out, didn't that? When did that come out?
It did, but it was actually updated. It's always been there.
Well, yeah.
But it was updated with the bishops' meeting, I think, not this February, but maybe last February, something like that. And they actually did. It came down to a vote whether they were going to keep the words preeminent for the abortion issue. And I mean, that's just spiritual warfare. When you talk about that is the infiltration in our church with the devil. You know what I mean? Because Catholics are the last line of defense for life. I just want people to understand that, because I am seeing an alarming number of Catholics say, well, there's all these other issues that are really important. I used to hear that all the time, but it was still like a pretty like small minority. And now it's growing, and it is. I want people to understand, a Catholic runs the National March for Life. A Catholic runs Students for Life. A Catholic runs 40 Days for Life. Yeah. I was trying to confirm the other day if National Right to Life is run by a Catholic, but most of the chapters for the states are Catholic-led. Catholics are the pro-life people. Yeah. A lot of people will be like, oh, the conservatives are, playing to the evangelical right. And it's like, sorry, but no. There are a lot of evangelical churches have their own pro-choice flavor.
More and more, really.
We're the only, we're the only centralized authority church that has not compromised, on that issue. Cool. So we're the last line of defense. That's like number one. Cool. But number two is this idea that that like abortion isn't as big a deal as we've made it out to be, but like immigration, racism.
Okay, so this is where I was gonna go.
Yeah,
let's actually go there.
Yeah.
I think the number one thing that I've seen on Twitter, the number one thing I've seen on Facebook is don't be a single issue voter.
Yeah.
Pro-life not only means caring for the unborn, but caring for the poor, caring for immigration, capital punishment, etc.
So it is. Like, here's
what about
the
those
thing.
things, right?
The Christian faith believes that humans are created in the image of God.
Right.
So all humans deserve dignity and respect, But I was recently on a webinar that I spoke on with a Franciscan, newly ordained, Father Daniel Marie Stimek, Stimek. Scott Hahn actually just like tweeted out one of his articles the other day. But he was so concise about explaining that like immigration, racism, sexism, like all those other things, welfare, all that stuff. Those are prudential issues, meaning like we can have actual disagreement reasonable on how those things should be handled.
100%.
There is no objective truth on how we should care for the poor, other than like we shouldn't exterminate them. That's pretty clear. You know what I mean? But we aren't exterminating poor people. We are not exterminating women in the workplace. But we are exterminating children in the womb.
1 million babies a year.
1 million babies a year. I mean, it's
genocide, right?
It's like 40 million worldwide. You know what I mean? So the Catholics need to get back to understanding more than just what like CCD teaches you through 8th grade.
Yeah.
You need to understand like what makes a moral act, And so if the object of the act itself is always evil, that's an intrinsic evil.
Yep.
And so it doesn't matter the circumstances or the intent. Abortion in all circumstances is always wrong. And so a Catholic can never support that. The only, and this is where modern voters and modern Catholics and 99 Baby Tobin are obscuring things, is the church does allow that if there is a proportionate evil that that candidate supports, you could vote for the other person who may, be an abortion supporter.
Right.
If they are against a proportionate evil. But Catholics need to understand what proportionate evil exists today.
Right.
You have to think about that.
Right.
I have just told you very quickly, and you can look up this on your own, Thomas Aquinas, that abortion is evil in all circumstances. It kills a human being in its earliest developmental stages.
Right.
Immigration, we can make compromises on that. We're not imminently threatening to exterminate. I guess that would be an example. In a country where you're literally going to face ethnic genocide. You know what I mean? If someone came to power, and I mean real, not this fake, Trump's going to usher in genocide. That's fake. No, fake news.
Fake news.
Literally. But yeah, if you were in a different country, Catholics, because, Catholicism is outside of America.
Right.
That would be a proportionate evil. You know what I mean? An imminent threat on a group of people's lives. So it's this guy over here doesn't support ethnically cleansing the Jews out of this country. But he's pro-choice. I'm going to vote for this guy because my pro-lifer over here wants to exterminate Jews. You know what I mean?
Right.
That is, in very plain language, that's the proportionate evil.
Right.
But unfortunately, and I've just shrunk that down to a sound bite, but I'm pretty well versed in this. I think even priests sometimes, they'll be well, the church doesn't tell you who to vote for, but you should follow your conscience. Of course, that means a well-formed conscience. And so that's what they're taking the faithful citizenship document. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's paragraphs 34, 35, 36, and 37.
Boom.
That they love to pull out of context, which starts with saying that abortion is the preeminent issue.
Yep.
But they do say there are other issues. Of course there are.
Yeah.
Of course there are. But honestly, a pro-life politician, it's a window into their soul. Someone who believes that abortion should be illegal at all stages does care for people.
100%.
But they might view welfare as not caring for people because it enables people, it keeps them poor. You know what I mean? That's my political philosophy.
Right.
That the more that the government is in regulation, human prosperity suffers. And what's going to lift someone out of poverty more, but a prosperous economy in a nation,
Right.
And so this is me. This is where I fall. I think, free market values will bring that about. Someone might disagree with me and say, well, no, we need to have a robust safety net. Okay, we're allowed to disagree about those things. But if we both agree that human beings shouldn't be killed, innocent human beings shouldn't be killed. You know what I mean?
Right.
We're on the right moral path.
Right.
But someone who will forsake the abortion issue, they'll weigh things. Do you know what I mean? If we're weighing things, abortion is the heaviest. Okay? It outweighs absolutely everything else, but not in their minds. So it's they'll count things. So it's abortion or, you know what I mean? Immigration,
Sure.
welfare,
Sure. Cool.
But, it's not even close. And so, no, Catholics, you can't vote for a pro-choice candidate, even if you say in your mind, well, I'm voting for them for other reasons, because you're not. You need to search your soul. You're not voting for that candidate for other reasons.
Right.
You are pro-choice. You just don't want to admit it.
Amen. Your rebuttal or response to liberals calling, I guess this is the flip side of it, calling Catholics or pro-life people.
Mm-hmm.
We're not pro-life people. We're just
Yeah.
pro-birth
Yeah.
people.
Well, first of all, like, this is what pro-life apologetics teaches. Like, bite the bullet. Yeah, I am pro-birth.
Yeah.
Because what's the opposite?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I do want children to be born. I don't want them to be suctioned out of their mother's wombs, in early stages. But also, it's not true. It's demonstrably not true. The pro-life movement runs crisis pregnancy centers.
Yep.
They run homes for single women. The Catholic Church itself is the largest charitable organization in the world.
Yep.
There are people, I've heard from pro-life people who are desperate for a solution to legal abortion who have come up with things like, what if we just everybody pooled our money and we just these are like older men. I'm like, what if we just bought their babies, and then we just, as long as they didn't kill their baby, we would take care of it. And it's like, it's like, well, I don't think that's going to go over well.
Right.
Just saying to a lady, let's buy your baby.
Right.
But that just shows you the heart of the pro-life
Yeah.
person. They absolutely do not discard. And it's just a distraction argument. Because they'll be like, well, Republicans want to get rid of welfare. And that's where you say, well, no, that we disagree on how we should handle poverty. But that doesn't mean that I don't care about the poor.
Right.
So but yeah, like it's just there's like this nice. It's Trent Horn taught me this. It's like this thought experiment. Like, imagine that like a building's on fire, and there's a family stuck inside.
I like this one a lot.
and you come in, and the firefighters are like rolling out their hose ready to extinguish, and like the mayor of the town goes, whoa, 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 whoa! Before you put out this fire, where are these people gonna live?
Yeah.
We don't have somewhere to house them.
Yeah.
They're going to lose everything in that house. I don't know if we can feed them.
Yeah.
There's school-age children in there. Where are they going to get their education? These are all things that people use as a reason for legal abortion.
Yeah.
And then you say, that's crazy. We're going to put out the fire first, and then we're going to figure out all those things. So even if
Sounds
pro-life
like a lot of
people had
arguments, by the
no
way.
right,
Yeah.
even if pro-life people had no idea what they were going to do with all these children, we don't kill them first. That's where we start. We start with saving their lives.
Cool. Let's talk about Orange Badman really quickly.
Yeah.
He's
Orange my bad.
really not pro-life.
Yeah.
He showed up to a March for Life.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
What do you say?
I hear this from so many people. He's not really pro-life
Yeah.
because he changed his mind.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hello. Am I not really
Yeah.
pro-life because I
Yeah.
changed my mind? So
I mean, he
they'll be
showed
like,
up to the March for Life. Like, first president to ever do
oh
so.
my
I
gosh.
mean,
well, here's the thing.
That's so
Here's
awesome.
the other thing. I don't care.
Yeah.
He's governing like a pro-life president.
Right.
I do not care if, you know what I mean? Like, oh, he's only doing it for your vote. Well, he's also about to deliver a third justice to the Supreme Court.
Not
in
to mention
his
the
first,
hundreds of judges he's put
in
into,
the lower courts.
Right.
So like somebody like went back and forth on my page, like
Right.
like saying like, well, he supports rape exceptions. And it's like, so does 90% of pro-life congressmen.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, they're not really pro-life. And it's like, well, that's honestly, you don't know that. That is a politically expedient position to take.
Yeah.
I just sat down with a congressional candidate, a local congressional candidate, and I spoke to him about the rape exception that's on his campaign literature. And I said, did you put that on there because you think that makes you more electable? Or is that really what you believe? And it was like somewhere in between.
Yeah.
And I was like, listen, take it off. Take it off because it might win some pro-choice people over. It's not going to win any pro-life people over. In fact,
Right.
some pro-life people will like totally like ditch you over that.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
For sure.
But yeah, I mean the Mexico City policy. At least the Title X defunding of Planned Parenthood. It was a very small victory. It wasn't as big as what they promised. They promised a full defunding of Planned Parenthood. The judges.
I mean,
He showed up
$60
in the
million
March for Life.
has gotta hurt
Mike
the wallets.
Pence is an impeccable pro-life.
Yeah.
You know, he always has been. And that's the thing is like, he just does pro-life things. So
Yeah.
honestly, who cares if personally he's not, like, if he's lying this whole time, but he's acting like a pro-lifer? I would prefer that to the personally pro-life Biden who acts like a pro-choicer.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it's so funny. You must be reading the notes more than I'm reading the notes, but a lot of people say, well, I'm personally pro-life, but I don't think that the government should legislate women's bodies.
So we call that the standard pro-choice position.
Yeah.
So you're not personally pro-life. You're not pro-life at all. If you think that it's okay for somebody else to kill a child in their earliest developmental stages, you are not pro-life, you know? And that's how people justify their pro-choice views because they don't have enough of a compelling reason to be pro-life. You know what I mean? And they don't want to say it's just because my church told me to. So with those people, there's actually more ground to be gained with a personally pro-choice person than somebody who's like, well, what about poor people, poor women, and what about women and their education, or who's like, my body, my choice. Those people have underdeveloped pro-life positions. And if you press them, you'll actually find that when you're like, well, and you say to them, so you don't want to kill babies in the womb, but you think other people should be able to. If they don't take great offense at you suggesting that,
they're not pro-life.
They're not even personally pro-life.
Right, exactly.
They're saying that because they think it's like more socially acceptable.
Right.
You know, but even if people are, I am personally pro-life because my church tells me to be pro-life, but I can't push my views on others, that sort of thing, then you're lying. You're lying about your faith in Jesus Christ. He's either the way or he's not. You know what I mean? Is Catholicism the aesthetic that you follow? Or is it the true, really, is it the pathway to heaven?
Right.
You know what I mean? And you're supposed to, like the social kingship of Christ, you're supposed to take Jesus Christ everywhere.
Yeah.
And that includes politics. And that includes, you know what? Telling your neighbor in a loving way, I'm worried about your soul for supporting this abomination.
Yeah. Man. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Striking, I've seen this a lot on Catholic timelines, and striking Roe v. Wade won't do anything.
Oh, won't do anything.
What would, well, first of all, you can talk about that, but obviously we know the truth. It will do something.
Oh my gosh, it's going to do a lot.
What would striking down, I mean, this might be a thing in our lifetime, which would
oh my
be
gosh,
awesome.
it is. It's going to be in our lifetime.
Right. Yeah, hopefully. What would striking, well, I guess you could talk about a little bit about why people say that, but also you being a huge proponent on the state level, on the county level.
This is where the battle's at.
What would that mean to you?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. So let me back up.
Right.
There's a little bit of truth in what people are saying. And I think when people say overturning Roe v. Wade won't do anything, what they really mean is abortion will still exist.
Right.
And the truth is that, of course it will. So murder still exists, rape still exists, even slavery still exists. In the dark underground, it happens. There's that's sin, so it will, but making abortion illegal will stop most abortions, period. End of story. In fact, if you read Abby Johnson's book Unplanned, you will find that her 2 abortions were not because
Catholics slipped on her real quick, huh?
Yeah, she does it a lot.
Yeah.
They'll come back.
Yeah,
she's big. You know what I mean? She's big. But anyway, if you read her book, she will. I said this to my husband when I read it. She had an abortion because abortion was an option. She didn't seek other options. You know what I mean? Her first boyfriend was like, well, let's just go take care of that. And then the second time she was just desperate. Well, she'd already done it. It was so much easier to do it the second time after you did it the first time. That's because abortion is a legal option. If it's not a legal option, far fewer people will seek it out. You know what I mean? Yeah. Most pro-choice women that I meet, they aren't worried about abortion being illegal for themselves. It's not a choice. Like most well-to-do women, they're like, it's not something that I would, choose for myself. But they want it for other people. So, and so there's something to be said for that. It's like, well, we're going to offer options for women. You know what I mean? But studies do show that where abortion is restricted, abortion rates go down. So there's that. But overturning Roe v. Wade just means that the states decide. There are a handful of states that when Roe v. Wade is overturned, they have trigger laws. They're on the books. Abortion will be illegal in their state immediately upon a Roe v. Wade overturn. And then there are a few more that will revert back to whatever their laws were before Roe v. Wade. And also remember that Planned Parenthood v. Casey in 1982, so Roe v. Wade established a right to an abortion through the first trimester, which is about 14 weeks. The companion case Doe v. Bolton, which a lot of people do not understand or realize was decided at the same time. And this is probably to suppress, so people don't really know the true horror.
Yeah.
That kept it legal at any stage. So you couldn't really you couldn't really deny a woman a right to an abortion at any stage if her health was in danger. And at the time that court case was decided, health meant the vicissitudes of life, which means anything.
Right.
A woman's age, her financial situation, all of that is her health.
Right.
People need to understand that is why in Maryland it's legal through all 9 months. And then there are a few states that have since the writing was on the wall after Gorsuch, after Kavanaugh, the writing was on the wall. Planned Parenthood and NARAL started a state-by-state strategy.
Wow.
And they are not targeting 50 states of the union because they know they can't win 50 states of the union. They're targeting about 9 or 10.
Yeah.
And in those 9 or 10, they want to strengthen and expand access to abortion. This is their words.
Wow.
Maryland is one of those states, but we saw this in 2018. You saw the RHA in New York. We saw a similar bill in Illinois. Virginia tried to pass theirs. That's when when Kathy Tran, Delegate Kathy Tran, when they were like, does your bill allow for a woman in labor to abort her baby? And she was like, oh, well, our like testimony, I wish our experts were here to say, and they go, no, let's talk about your bill. Like, and she paused, and he was like, the woman's dilating, Delegate. And she goes, my bill would allow that, yes. And that was like, wah! And everybody's like, whoo! But that's the truth. That's what NARAL and Planned Parenthood want. They want the most liberal laws. So they're focusing on states where they can strengthen and expand. So a Roe v. Wade overturn in some states would do nothing. Maryland is one of those states. Maryland would our abortion would still be legal. It would be on the table, though. We'd be able to attack it because there would be no federal court case that kept us from doing so.
Right.
So it's going to be a battle in the state of Maryland. And that's why for the last 2 years, they've been trying to put it in our state constitution. Because if they can put a right to in our state constitution, then it's a lot harder to overturn. And this is my plea to pro-life people, is that you have to get involved right now with your state, pro-life movement. You absolutely have to, because it's all about numbers. It's about people showing up. It's about people flooding the phone lines and getting the word out. Because I can tell you right now, I think if more people in Maryland actually knew the atrocity of our abortion law, they would at least agree to some limitations. They'd go, ooh, I don't like this.
Yeah. Because
even pro-choice people, most of them, want to see it restricted to the first trimester.
Sure. Cool.
Yeah.
Bring it on. I would love it to be on the state level, because then you meet people like Ali.
Yeah.
You meet people like your family.
So that's actually that is like some excitement to me when people are like, well, I just don't know if like Roe v. Wade's going to be overturned. Well, it might not get overturned wholesale. But with a 6-3 court balance, what they'll do is they'll start to hear, like the June medical that just got decided in March and the announcement came in June. That was actually, they had already, in Whole Women's Health, versus, I think it's the state of Texas. It was, they tried to regulate abortion with like hallway sizes and, like admitting privileges and stuff. And Roberts voted for that. Of course, he's in the minority. Then when they got the majority, he voted, he flipped. And June Medical was like the same exact bill. Mm-hmm. But there are a lot of people, legal experts, I don't pretend to be one, who think that John Roberts will, now that he's got cover.
Yeah. Interesting. Now
that he's got some more cover, he'll start to have these coalitions and he'll start to take these things down. But it's going to be little by little. I don't know a bill that would come up that's going to like wholesale overturn Roe. But it will probably be like chip by chip. You know what I mean? But they've already been lining those up. That's what you guys have to understand, like the heartbeat bills and all that. Those were legal experts. Those were like state right to life committee saying, okay, the court outlook in 5 years looks really good. That's how long it'll take. You know what I mean? So they're trying a direct challenge. And that's also like dismemberment bans and pain capable. All these states try to push those because they know they'll get challenged in the courts and they all have a chance. Of course, there's always a chance, too, that they strengthen abortion precedent. You know what I mean? If you don't have the court. So there were a lot of people who felt like they pushed for the heartbeat bills too quickly. Very, very respectable pro-lifers who will disagree that the heartbeat bills were too, you know what I mean? Or as some of the pro-life. I think Tennessee actually had one that was like not even a heartbeat. It was really like conception. You know what I mean? And they thought it was too soon. We don't have the court for it. Well, God lines things up. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, man. That's so awesome. All right. Josh wanted to put this in here. Let me just read off what he asked. The charge that abortions go down under Democrat administrations. Mm-hmm. I have seen plenty of Christians that use that as a justification for why they are voting Biden.
Yeah.
So let's start there. He has
Isn't
he
it
does have a
nice
second
that the
question.
data always seems to work out for pro-choice people,
Yeah.
but never for pro-life people?
Yeah.
When like pro-life people have been fighting for an end to abortions start going down, and all of a sudden pro-choice people like claim the victory. No,
Yeah.
that's not how it works.
Right.
So there's actually a great rebuttal if you guys want to look it up live action. The author is Michael New, and it's like, do abortions go down under Democrat
Administrations, right?
So I did look that up before, because I had seen the headline. I didn't read it, and I read it real quick before I came over. But I had what I was going to say before I read that article was, presidents have very little to do on like policy that would make abortions go down. Like Bush got partial birth abortion banned. Like that was still a tiny amount. That didn't touch any first trimester abortions or anything like that. But when you look at the data, abortions sharply rose during Carter's administration, because a legal abortion will cause abortions to go up.
Right, exactly.
So it's like a sharp increase, and then actually they have steadily declined. The rate of abortion has declined for every presidency since then.
Right.
So they have been trending down.
Cool.
But also pregnancy rates as a whole are down.
Yeah.
You have fewer births, you have fewer people trying to procreate, you're going to have fewer abortions.
Right.
It's just, it's just math.
Yeah.
So it's kind of sad, Catholics are not as open to life anymore. That's part, you know what I mean? But a lot of people get criticized for more than 2 children, more than 1 child.
Oh yeah.
So we're actually below replacement rate right now. So where pregnancy rates go down, abortion rates go down. And so that's one aspect of why the abortion rate is down supposedly under Democrat. And actually, I believe it was during the Obama administration, like life expectancy went down for women. They're committing suicide at younger ages. It's like the 40s and 50-year-old like single white women, that are like committing suicide. They're very unhappy. Who knew that would happen when you elevate self over career, that sort of thing. So, so that's one. But it's also, again, the abortion debate is really at state levels. States have different abortion laws, and more red states are more tolerant of restrictions on abortion. So when you look at state level comparisons under these Democrat presidents, you'll see it's there where it's in those states where the abortion rate is decreased.
Sure.
So it's really kind of like, it's one of those things where they're like, oh, look, like you see this downward trend, and we had, 2 Democrat presidents during that time. Like, look, the abortion rate went down. It's like, come on.
Yeah.
And pro-lifers are very like sick of having to like let pro-choicers like take our victories, but it's pro-choice win or pro-life wins in those states. You know what I mean? It's passing, some bans like being capable, or it's or it's even like parental leave policies and that sort of things. All that stuff is all contributed. It's the crisis pregnancy movement. All of those things, just anything that will help women in crisis, all of those things have contributed to a reduction in the rate of abortion.
Cool.
It's not because a Democrat got in there and
Right.
expanded welfare.
Right.
That doesn't
Exactly. Right. He also mentioned, if you could talk about the grassroots work that, what is this? CCRTL?
Yeah, Charles County Right to Life.
Oh, okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
Charles County Right to Life has done evidence that pro-life is more than just talk, or a way Republicans to raise money and plug organizations like the Catherine Foundation.
Yeah. So Charles County Right to Life, I inherited, basically, I'm going to say, from my very dear friend Sid Marcus, who ran it for like 30 or 35 years.
Yeah.
And I actually took over. His wife was dying, and I was in the hospital with Jacob. Like, I had just delivered Jacob when I was voted in as president.
Wow.
And then very sadly and unfortunately, Sid's wife died like 3 weeks later. Very, very tragic. He is now remarried to a lovely woman, Susanna. They were in a horrible motorcycle accident on Memorial Day, so please pray for them. Sid's still recovering at home. Susanna's like almost fully on the mend. But anyway, Sid built that chapter on just like blood, sweat, and tears. Do you know what I mean? Like he had a lot of trust. He was uncompromising in his beliefs. He had the phone number and email of like every pastor in this county. He's just a very influential person. Built up the list, built up the audience. But he recognized also after a certain time, like, the constituency has changed. It's getting younger, and the technology and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I was a really active Charles County Right to Life member for like 2 years since when I started the conference. Like I started it through Charles County Right to Life, and then when it was like Sid was like, I gotta step down. I need somebody to step up. That was when I did. Cool. So it's not like I built Charles County Right to Life. I always want to give credit where credit is due. And that was nice. But Charles County was, because of Sid, was always the most continuously active chapter in the state of Maryland. So we just took that mantle. But what was not, like, some of the ways that we elevated it was like professionally designed logo, having a website.
Yeah, it's all things that are really important.
Facebook, social media. Those were things that I, as a millennial, could just do.
Yeah.
But I also studied a lot of like persuasive techniques, like through marketing. So a lot of like emails and blog posts and things that I do are like marketing. Yeah. Because everything's a sales pitch. So that's the thing is like we always need people who donate, and you always need people who will like cheer you on. Yeah. But like you do need boots on the ground. So there's a few things that pro-lifers can do. Well, there's like, I swear that there's like 100. One of these days I'm going to do a blog series, like 100, like do pro-life things. Yeah. But like, what we primarily do in Charles County Right to Life is our focus is during the 90-day General Assembly that goes on in Maryland from the second Wednesday in January, 90 days from there. And we are a 501c4, so we're allowed to do issue advocacy. We're allowed to do legislative lobbying, as long as we don't spend a lot of money on it. We're a nonprofit. So we help either pass or defeat bills. And in the last 2 years, we have been absolutely crucial in defeating physician-assisted suicide in the state of Maryland. In fact, in 2019, we flipped Senator Ellis, our senator, from a co-sponsor to a no vote. Which that bill, if you guys don't know, it passed the House, and it died in the Senate on a 23-23 tie. Wow. So Senator Ellis votes yes that year, and we have physician-assisted suicide legal. So the ways that we did that, though, the ways that Charles County Right to Life did it wasn't just like a wing and a prayer. Like there's a playbook to follow. So it's like when a bill comes down and you see who's co-sponsoring it, you target the co-sponsors first. Try to get them to withdraw their support for the bill. Yeah. So you do that. Meanwhile, when it gets assigned to a committee, you start targeting those committee members. If one of your, legislators is in a committee that's hearing a bill like that, you are in the hot seat. Like, you as a constituent have a lot more power than just the greater Maryland. Sure. You know what I mean? So if someone's hearing physician-assisted suicide and 100 of their constituents call them, they're going to be like, "Ooh, this is obviously not popular in my district. I don't want election, consequences. Yep. I'm going to set this one aside." Yep. And it's the game. So that's the thing that we do. So we focused. We started with emails. We did phone calls. We went and saw him in person. Yeah. We followed up with more emails, more phone calls, and eventually he amended his name off the bill, so he withdrew his support and he voted no on the floor. So, but we also have our delegate, Deb Davis, is in the Judiciary Committee that heard it on the House side. And so we secured a no vote from her, but she was pretty anti-PAS before she even got in there. From a judicial aspect, she didn't like it. Was a messy bill. She didn't really like it. Yeah. So that's good. All of our legislators are anti-physician assisted suicide, but they're not all pro-life. And sure. Senator Ellis kind of is, though, so that people know. Like, he is pretty anti-abortion. He just doesn't. I don't think he knows he is. You know what I mean? But you'll say to him, like, they're killing our future senator, and I'm like, you're so right. We don't want those people in here, meaning like Planned Parenthood, NARA. We don't want them in my, in my office, that kind of thing. So we do, like, that's like the boots on the ground. Yeah. So you don't need a lot of people like at the meetings. I mean, I do like a lot of people at the meetings. Right. You should come out to one of my meetings next Tuesday.
It's really your voice.
Yeah, but like, we need people that who can speak well and convince others to get active, so that when I send the legislative alert out, people are like, okay, she's not wasting my time. Like, we have hope here. Yeah. And they'll pick up the phone and they'll call. And that's the thing. That's like, that works. Yeah. I mean, people, of course it does, when the Reproductive Health Act was going on in New York, and it was like New York Right to Life was like defeated. In a lot of these pro-choice states, these Right to Life chapters are really defeated. And I was like, why are the people of New York not on the phone constantly? Why are they not in buses, like taking up residence in the state house? And I basically said, if you didn't call your legislator if you didn't write a letter, if you didn't speak to another human being about how bad this bill was, you have blood on your hands. And I wanted people to understand that. If you don't oppose it in your state, even if you go down, even if you fail, you have to stand up.
Yeah.
Because they have to know that there's a force there. And that's the thing in Maryland. They understand that the pro-life movement is sharp. We have a lot of great advocates in the state. And we're a coalition. Like even like the pregnancy centers, Maryland Right to Life,
Cool.
Students for Life, we all work together. And that is dangerous for the pro-choice lobby.
Yeah.
Because they have a lot of money. They have a ton of money. They don't have a lot of grassroots. And that's where it's really important. But we also do other things like 40 Days for Life, and we support the Pregnancy Center Catherine Foundation in Charles County. They got denied like a grant last year, and I wrote a blog post that like blew up the charitable trust, and it got super viral, and it ended up raising a whole bunch of more extra money for them. And then this year, very quietly, Charles County Charitable Trust awarded them the grant that they asked for last year. They awarded it in the new grant year. They got it for funding their nurse. So there's always work to be done. Speaking up is so powerful, but not just carping online. You know what I mean? Like arguing with someone online. You don't even know where that person. They could be in Australia.
Yeah.
But you got to do like real work in your community.
Yeah. Amen.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have a lot of time left, so I want to hit you with two more things.
Sure.
I think. I'll read the quote here first. And you've probably heard this quote 100 times,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I want to get your kind of what it means to you,
Mm-hmm.
and then of course kind of curtail it all into one final thought. Of course, this quote is from Congressman Henry Hyde, famous for the Hyde Amendment. And I'm sure you've heard this before, but I want to read it for our viewers. When he talks about the pro-life movement, which is I think so amazing and so great to hear for every pro-lifer out there. He says, when the time comes, as it surely will, when we face that awesome moment, that final judgment, I've often thought, as Fulton Sheen wrote, that it is a terrible moment of loneliness. You have no advocates. You are there alone standing before God, and a terror will rip your soul like nothing you can imagine. But I really think that those in the pro-life movement will not be alone. I think there will be a chorus of voices that have never been heard in this world, but are heard beautifully and clearly in the next world. And they will plead for everyone who has been in this movement. They will say to God, spare him because he loves us. What does that mean to you?
I've actually never heard that quote.
Oh, what?
No, I didn't know Henry Hyde was Catholic. That's like pretty incredible.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Because you are Catholic if you're quoting Fulton Sheen, right?
Yeah.
No, that's really powerful. And I think Deacon Jim at St. Joseph said something pretty similar, like at this past weekend, but I think he said it kind of in the reverse. Like those babies are going to be there for your final judgment.
They are.
If you're,
100%.
no matter what, like what you, and I think that is really beautiful to think about. And that is like, honestly, we have like a lot of really amazing atheist pro-lifers, in the movement and secular pro-lifers who are changing the game because they're basically, they're actually like coming alongside the Catholics. And when someone's like, you're only, pro-life because you're Catholic, then you're like the secular pro-life is like, hi, she's with me. Yeah. That kind of thing. But I think that's beautiful. And this is because I did want to talk about the Hyde Amendment. Okay?
Yeah.
So the Hyde Amendment is what bars federal tax dollars from paying for abortions. I do want people to know that you need to look at what your state is paying for.
Yep.
In Maryland, we pay for like between 8 and over 9,000 abortions per year in our state Medicaid program. And they even strengthened Planned Parenthood's funding in 2017. And again, this past year, they replaced, or like in 2019, they replaced the funding that President Trump, deregulated out of, we replaced, the Maryland taxpayer replaced.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's really important for you to know that like your tax dollars do in fact pay for abortions, but not through any federal Medicaid.
Right.
And there is a great campaign that Democrats for Life and Secular Pro-Life and I think New Wave Feminists, they all kind of come together. And it's like, it used to be called Hello Hyde, but it's something different now.
Okay.
But anyway, they celebrate every year how many people are alive because of the Hyde Amendment. And they highlight human beings that are alive today, adults, because their mothers were on Medicaid and they were not allowed to get an abortion. You know what I mean? That doesn't necessarily mean their moms were abortion minded, but it does mean like Medicaid was like a pro-life, you know what I mean? It was like, we're going to support life here in this instance. Joe Biden has promised to repeal that. Kamala Harris supports repealing the Hyde Amendment. And so when people say that, like, well, Joe Biden's policies are going to decrease abortion because he's going to do so much, you have to understand what he has promised. He has not promised a reduction in abortion. He's not even saying, I'm personally pro-life, but I'm for reducing abortion. He won't even use that language because he knows where his bread is buttered.
Yep.
He is for repealing the Hyde Amendment, which will expand abortion, because now our tax dollars will pay for it. He is for codifying Roe v. Wade into federal statute, which would expand abortion. He is for defeating any reasonable measures that would limit abortion to, 20 weeks or pain capable. He is not even for, and Kamala Harris is not for saving infants born alive during a failed abortion. So while he may be promising you something that sounds so good, this utopia, of a society where we just out of thin air, we pay for a lot of programs that would be beneficial to women in crisis. No doubt, if we could ever attain utopia, wouldn't that be great? But he has promised to strengthen and expand abortion. So it is not even true that a vote for Biden, who is probably not going to make it through his full term, and Kamala Harris, helped to prosecute, pro-life undercover journalists in California. They're not going to compromise with you.
Yeah.
You can't compromise with the pro-choice side because they'll never compromise with you.
Yeah.
They'll never limit abortion because they want consensus. They want power. And once they get it, Planned Parenthood and NARAL put millions of dollars into these elections.
Yep.
They have spent a lot of money in the state of Maryland. They have promised a state-by-state expansion.
Yep.
So it's just not true.
Yeah.
And yes, when I stand for judgment, there's going to be a lot that I have to atone for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I use social media way too much.
Yeah.
I could be a better mother. I'm a workaholic, but
Yeah.
I am. There's at least one thing that Jesus is going to say that I did well, and it's going to be this.
Amen. To wrap things up, this is a men's podcast. I don't even know if it's true, but when you think pro-life, you think of the woman, you think of you think of the mother, you think of the child. What would your advice or what would your thing be to men, to dads in the pro-life?
Dads, we need you. We need you.
Yeah.
Don't let anybody tell you you don't have a uterus, no say. That's just easily defeatable and silly.
Yeah.
But strength is attractive.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's why a lot of people like Trump, because he came in and he was like knocking people out. Do you know what I mean? I actually heard this from pro-lifers. It kind of used to disgust me a little bit, but I sort of see where they're coming from.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, we're going to do this. You're going to have that baby. You know what I mean? But I'm not saying dads should go around saying that. But
yeah.
Absolutely. I loved you guys last week when telling Seth that when he's got kids hanging off of him, that you guys like that. That inspires you. It inspires a lot of people.
Sure.
A lot of our problems in our society are an emasculation of dads or a total erasure. Dads are not in the picture. So a lot of our social ills will go away when families are strengthened. So dads do need to stand up. They need to teach their young men, the men that they're raising, to respect women, to wait for marriage, that being a dad is a great thing, that's the most important thing. They are a strong voice, for the voiceless. Absolutely, men are needed in the movement. There's a lot of Catholic women who think that men need to, in fact, step up a little bit more.
Sure.
Yes, you're going to be attacked. We're all attacked. I'm attacked all the time. I'm a woman. I'll be like, hello, you don't speak for me. And they're like, well, you're just, regressive or whatever.
Yeah.
But definitely dads should go to march. You should go. There should be go to your local life chain. It's a thing. It's so easy. It's non-confrontational. You stand alone on the side of the road with a pro-life sign, but your kids should see you doing that. You should bring them along.
Yeah.
you should go. If like there's a bill hearing you can bring your kids to, like you should go. You should take the day off of work and go, like, and show them that there's important things that we set aside our lives for to go like fight for.
Amen.
And yeah, absolutely, men should lead. And there's a lot of great men in the pro-life movement. Ryan Bomberger, pray for him. He actually just suffered a pulmonary embolism, but he is an amazing male pro-life leader. David B. Wright, Sean Carney, Josh Brom, all the Steve Wagner, Trent Horn. These are all amazing pro-life guys.
Yeah.
And they found their little niche and they've led. So definitely don't let anybody tell you that a man can't be pro-life or can't speak up. Because also, if you say that, you're just pro-choice. If you're like, no, I can't say anything because I'm a man. Okay.
Yeah.
You're pro-choice. You're supporting a choice. I'm just saying.
Thank you so much for
thanks for
being
having
here.
me.
It was
Sure.
so much fun. I mean, we could probably talk about a lot of things, but
I could talk for a long time.
Well, we appreciate you being
sure.
on here. I think it was really important to have your voice on here.
Thank you.
First woman ever.
Yes.
History in the books.
History.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching and being part of the show. Of course, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, and all other podcast services around the globe. What we do at the end of every episode is we talk prayer intentions, and then we close with a prayer.
Sure.
So is there anything we should be praying for you?
Just what we're praying for I think our election, that God's blessing is given to us in this election, that we elect virtuous men and women open to the guidance of the Holy Spirit, and peace for our suffering nation.
Amen. Praying for my grandma who's suffering with, I think, some memory and a little bit of dementia problems right now. She's like late 80s now, so just praying for her, please. So let's what we've been praying every week is we actually been praying the St. Michael prayer for this election.
All right.
And so let's do that in the name of Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. St. Michael, the Archangel, defend us in battle, be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil.
May God rebuke him, we humbly pray.
And do
Thou, O Prince of the heavenly hosts, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl about the world seeking the ruin of souls. Amen.
Thank you so much.
Teresa of Avila.
What's up?
St. Teresa of Avila, pray for us. It's our feast day today.
Yay. Okay, we'll see you next week. Thank you so much. For those who are listening to the show, I think we only have like 4 more episodes left. We timed it around Josh and Angie's due date.
Oh, geez.
So we have like 4, maybe 4 episodes left. We'll see.
Okay.
So hang in there. We'll see you next week. Thank you. Have a good week, guys. Bye.